everyone, today I wanted to share with you my favorite sophomore albums of all time. This list really isn't in any particular order besides number one. Also, the change of scenery, it gets hot here this time of year, so I wanted to just start filming in different places and see how I like it, but I wanted to address that and everything. I might not film here every week. Okay, so after I finished recording this video, I realized that I made the fatal mistake of not including szasos' SOS, so I'm doing the voiceover today to talk about it. This is a phenomenal album. What I really appreciated about this is the fact that she was being a little bit more experimental, doing some more alternative stuff. There are some rock moments on here. You have the classic R&B that she does. You have a little bit of rap in songs like Smokin' All My Ex Pack, for example. And that's what I really appreciate is, you know, her showing her versatility, and it sounds great. And I think this album was well worth the wait. You get great vocals from SZA. Her songwriting is top tier as always, a stellar production. And my skips on this album, oh, because Travis Scott ad-libs just annoy me, but you know, it's actually a good song. Open Arms, because Travis Scott is on it. I'm not about to be supporting that. The solo version was better anyways because she had another verse. Underrated songs on this album, Far is definitely underrated. F2F is a great rock moment on this album. Seek and Destroy as well. My favorite songs in this album, Blind is incredible, you know, just from a songwriting standpoint and how self-reflective and aware that it is just incredible. Gone Girl definitely sounds like something that could have been on Control in the best way and is one of my favorites on this album. Sure, it took forever for it to come out, but it's just so ridiculously catchy. Shout out to Darkchild for the production. Good Days, like I said, the world felt like it was healing when this song came out. I really needed it. I still love it. Amazing vocals, some of her best songwriting. She was really pushing her pen there. Ghost in the Machine featuring Phoebebridgers, amazing alternative moment. I love Phoebe's verse. I'm always replaying it. And this album is just too good. It really is. I actually like this better than Control, and Control was a phenomenal album as well. I said before that I think SZA is really the it girl in R&B right now, and you know, this album truly proved it with all the records she was able to break. She just delivers quality time and time again. So huge fan of this album. Love the album cover as well. I would be remiss if I did not mention it, and it's got a lot of replay value out of me, and rightfully so. I will say I had like a whole Twitter space on this that was on my channel, but this was before I edited like my clips a little bit better for copyright, so it blocked the video worldwide, and then I had to go through a bunch of stuff to like fix it. And honestly, I think that is just a video I'm gonna redo. I think my thoughts on the album have changed a little bit. I want to have it be more structured album review. So yeah, sometime this year I'll do an album review for it. I actually have an album reaction for it on the channel, so you can see like my original thoughts on it, but I'm gonna make a whole detailed review of it. So at number 11, I have Destinyschild, The Writings on the Wall. They had hit after hit after hit on this album. You have Say My Name, Bills, 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 So Good, Jumpin', Jumpin'. I mean, they were coming for blood. They really were. Vocal arrangements on this album, I always felt like were pretty great, and I just love the harmonies and stuff like that. I like that they have that gospel song at the end of this album and all the albums that they released for the most part, and I really like the songwriting on here. I think it's super catchy. Shout out to all the songwriters on this album for sure. Generally love the production. Like, if you want to know like the best 90s albums to listen to, if you want to know the best sophomore albums to listen to, it always goes back to this for sure, and there's a reason why it's so beloved in R&B music in general, and especially in Destinyschild fans. A lot of people will say this is their best album. I would disagree with that. I'm gonna give it to Destiny Fulfilled. I get why people would say that. So an underrated track on this album I think is Confessions. That's always been one that I really enjoyed. My favorite tracks on this album, I definitely have to give it to the classic Say My Name. Of course, you know, I still love it all these years later. That is just a quintessential R&B song. I really like the video for that as well. Obviously want to give it to Bugaboo. I just think that that's a really fun song to listen to. And then I'm gonna give it to Temptation, because that one is also a little bit underrated as well. So definitely a great album and something you should check out if you have not already. I have a whole video on it, and I'll throw it up in the cards right here if you want to check that out, a whole revisit with me, which is my series where I re-listen to albums with you guys that I've already heard and just give my thoughts there, and it's just something that's fun. And any videos that I've made on any of these albums or these artists will be linked down below in the description if you would like to check out more. On to number 10, which is going to be Punisher by Phoebebridgers. So I love her music. One thing I appreciate about her, she has this really soft, angelic voice, and a lot of times in this album it's paired with that juxtaposition of these devastating lyrics, and she gets personal in a way. She gets very relatable on this album. She has a song Kyoto where she's talking about her relationship with her dad and kind of how that's changed over time. I liked ICU. I liked whenever she's saying I can see the brushstrokes, because to me that's saying like I can see your imperfections. And I also will say Savior Complex is definitely just a gorgeous piece to listen to, that really great juxtaposition. So I think that she's just supremely talented as a songwriter. I love her vocals on here. I love the production, especially on songs like I Know the End, and just what a great closer that was, and just how much it builds up. If you're very into a singer-songwriter type and you want something that's a little bit more current, I feel like you can't really go wrong with her. So underrated song on this album, I'm gonna give it to Garden Song. Moon Song was also quite underrated, I feel. My top 3 on this album, I definitely gotta give it to Kyoto. I think that it's just super catchy, really fun to listen to. Also Savior Complex, that is one of the most beautiful songs that I've ever heard, just the vocal standpoint. And the last one is Graceland too, and I love the background vocals on here. I believe Lucy Dacus and Julian Baker on this. Shout out to them as well. Now on to number 9, Ungodly Hour by Chloe and Halle, they ate the pandemic up. All the great performances that they had, they were on a tennis court, they were on the award stage, they were doing some great virtual performances. And honestly, they don't get enough for how well that they did in that era in a performance standpoint. And I saw this video, I think Kimberly Foster made it, and it was basically just like how they won the pandemic. I'll link it down below in the description if you want to watch it. But yeah, this is just a great contemporary R&B album. I love how their voices fit together and just the way that they play off of each other. I think it works super well, and it's just a treat to listen to vocally. The songwriting on here is super catchy and I really enjoy it, and great productions on here as well. The only song that would be a skip for this album is Catch Up. I just don't like that song, as a lot of other people don't as well. But you know, besides that, I think this is a pretty strong album. Songs that I would say are underrated, definitely have to give it to Overwhelmed. It feels more like an interlude if anything, but I feel like there's kind of just a sense of urgency that it has. I need a weekend again, and just it really lives up to the title. I'm feeling overwhelmed, and so it's a really great song. And I also think that Don't Make It Harder on Me is super underrated. I mean, that bass line alone is definitely a great one. Wonder What She Thinks of Me is also a great piece as well. In terms of my favorite songs on this album, definitely have to give it to Baby Girl. That has always been my favorite song on this album, and I remember when I was waiting for them to do it live, and they did this awesome Tiny Desk. I'll link it down below in the description. And yeah, they just ate that up. It's an excellent song. And then Busy Boy, when they performed it on that tennis court, they changed lives. They changed lives. I'm sorry. They definitely ate that up. And then last up, I have to give it to Do It. I'm pretty sure Victoria Monet is credited as a songwriter on this, which makes sense. Victoria Monet has had hit after hit after hit, and she definitely delivered once again with Do It. I think that this is just a fun, you know, anthem for that time, and this deserves so much more on Billboard if you let me tell it. But yeah, both are supremely talented. And also shout out to Chloe on the producer side as well, because she has some production credits on here. You know, shout out to both of them as songwriters and everything that they're putting forth. And I'm just excited to see what they do in their careers. But this is definitely one of my most played albums of that year, and every time I listen to it, I'm just like, how did they do it? Especially if you listen to the Chrome edition, I believe, and they have 2 bonus tracks. So it was 80/20, and then they also had Hazy, which really gave a Halloween vibe. So I think that makes it even better, and that's the version that I listened to. One of the best albums of 2020. That year was stacked. So that's how you know that this album was good, because I remember putting it on my list. I remember it being one of my most played. And if I had to pick like 5 albums from 2020 I think you should listen to, I would throw this somewhere in the list. On to number 8, Never Say Never by Brandy. So this is definitely a quintessential 90s R&B album. Brandy is one of my favorite singers of all time. They call her vocal bible for a reason, in terms of just her skill with vocal arrangements and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot to like just from that standpoint. The production from Dark Child is absolutely incredible, and shout out to the other producers on this album. And I also just really like the songwriting on here. I thought that it was a great piece there. But if you really want a time capsule of the 90s and what the strongest offerings were, this album has to be in there every time, I'm telling you. In terms of like underrated songs on this album, I would definitely say Happy is very underrated. That was one that came up on one of my Spotify playlists I was listening to. I'm like, I forgot how good that this song was. And in terms of my absolute favorite songs off of this album, The Boy's Mine has to be in there, obviously. Yes, it's a classic. Yes, we've heard it 1,000 times. I get why people are tired of it. But her and Monica, they went in the studio, they ate, they did what had to be done. When I'm talking about songs that I don't get tired of, I'm talking about that. And there's a reason why it's the most popular like female collaboration of all time, because they did that, you know, so shout out to both of them. Of course, I also really love Put Down on Everything. I still wish that I would have put that in my honorable mentions for the video that I did on my top 15 Brandy songs of all time, and it'll be linked in the cards if you want to watch that. Shame on me for doing that, but I'm righting my wrongs there. And I love how she sings the bridge twice. I love all the ad-libs and all that stuff that she has on there, and just a very peaceful song to listen to. A great production. Like, that is an outstanding Brandy song, I'll tell you. And then Almost Doesn't Count is certainly a favorite for me, and the songwriter basically just said it was about some guy that she was dating, and it was like he would almost say he would love me, he would almost commit, and then he wouldn't do it. And like she said, almost doesn't count. How many times are you gonna keep making excuses instead of, you know, just being real with me? Almost doesn't count. It's harder every single time I listen to it. I love that performance she did in 2020 for the census. Oh, that was absolutely incredible, and it's definitely one of Brandy's best songs of all time for sure. And last up, I'll definitely say Angel in Disguise. I consider this to be the real intro of the album. No shade, the intro of the album, I don't really care for it too much, but you know, Angel in Disguise, amazing piece to listen to, and I love what they were getting into just from a production standpoint. Vocals are amazing. My skips on this album, I think it weakens out towards the end, so maybe like the last like what 3 or 4 songs on this album, something like that. But you know, I think this album has a lot of strengths. There's a reason why in R&B circles and in like vocal circles Brandy's loved so much, and she definitely is underrated. She really is. I think she deserves to get brought up more in the vocalist conversation than she does sometimes. What she's able to do with her voice and just like her tones and everything, I think that she deserves a little bit more credit for that. So definitely a favorite for me, and I did a whole album review on this as well, and that'll be linked in the description with all my other videos on Brandy if you would like to check that out. On to number 7, Ram by Paul and Linda McCartney. So if you know anything about me, I am a huge Paul McCartney fan. I have been since I was in high school, really, and so I just think that this is like the cream of the crop whenever it's coming to sophomore albums. A great like folk pop album, especially after coming off of his first album, how everyone wrote him off. After that, he came back with this album, and whenever he released this album at the time, he got a lot of bad reviews because, you know, the critics weren't liking him at the time, and now, you know, the tides have changed, and now they're like, wow, that was a really great album. And I just think that this is some of his best work overall. It's just such a nice album to listen to. I think there's a lot of highlights on here. In terms of the songs that are underrated, definitely have to give it to Dear Boy and Monkberry Moon Delight as well. I feel like Monkberry Moon Delight actually really grew on me. I think the vocal takes a little bit of getting used to, but I really like that song. In terms of some of my favorites on this album, I have to give it to Another Day. I just think that's a great song. Too Many People is a great opener for the album. I always thought Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, all the different parts that it has, the vocals, I think it's a really nice piece. And The Backseat of My Car is my favorite song on the album and one of my favorite Paul McCartney songs of all time. Just a gorgeous piece in terms of the instrumentation and stuff like that. I always say that Paul McCartney's music is magical, and if you kind of want to get why I love his music so much, I think that this is one of the best places to start. Obviously, Paul McCartney's influenced many people for a reason, just supremely talented as a singer, as a songwriter, as an instrumentalist, and I love what Linda contributes to this record as well in the moments that she gets to shine, vocal harmonies and stuff like that. And that's what I really appreciate about Paul McCartney, is he knew how to utilize Linda's voice and talents in the right way. And so I just think that this is really a treat to listen to, and I love Paul McCartney always. Now on to number 6, Win the Pawn by Fionaapple. Fionaapple is another one of my favorite singer-songwriters of all time. She's so underrated, it hurts. I will tell anybody that will listen, you have to check out Fionaapple. And if you want to get into her, this is the right album to start. I think that this is the most accessible album that she has in her entire catalog. This feels very much like New York, just in terms of the production, the drums, the piano, the kind of urgency that it has to it in certain songs, and that's what I really love about it. And it's just nice when an album kind of feels like a place, and she just really distilled New York down into one album, I always thought. So that's what I really liked about it. And then also I just think that Fionaapple is one of like the best singer-songwriters of all time for sure, and just how raw and real that she gets in her songs. She doesn't feel the need to be so polished about it and everything, because you know, life isn't like that. There's a lot of things that happen that are really challenging to deal with and everything, and there is ugliness to that in a sense, and I like kind of how she displays that. And she's also a fantastic piano player as well. In terms of songs that I think are underrated on this album, I Know is a great closing track. That is one that I've really come to appreciate more and more every single time that I listen to it, so I'll definitely give it on to that one. My favorite songs in this album definitely have to be Paper Bag. I like that lyric whenever she said it's all in your head, and I said so's everything, but he didn't get it. Just what a great piece. I love the progression of it. I liked her vocal performance on here a lot. I think it's super catchy. It's one of her most popular songs for a reason. And then I also really liked A Mistake and the lyrics there. And then last up is definitely going to be Fast As You Can. It's just amazing, just in terms of the instrumentation and everything. When I talk about this album sounding like New York, I'm definitely talking about a song like that. But this is just a great album to listen to in general, and this is kind of like a comfort album for me. Like if I'm not feeling the greatest, I listen to that. It makes me feel a little bit better, even though it has nothing to do with however I'm feeling at that time. I really do like this album. I just think that it's incredible overall. And Apple, she's too talented, truly. Now we are on to top 5. So at number 5, I decided to put Aaliyah, One in a Million. I'm wearing an Aaliyah shirt. A lot of great albums released in the 90s, and this is one that you must listen to. If you have listened to it and you love it, go listen to it again. It's just that good of an album. You know, this is when she finally starts working with Timbaland and Missy Elliott, and I feel like they were really able to help her kind of find what her sound is. I think that it really paid off in a lot of ways. Just great vocal performances from her, and I really like her confidence on these tracks, and just, you know, her personality and her essence that she has. People love Aaliyah for a reason, and so that has to be stated there. I've barely met anyone who doesn't like her. A lot of people love her music. It doesn't matter what age or any of those things, you know, like her music really transcends. And so this album, just incredible, just incredible. Some of my least favorites on this album, I would definitely say Hot Like Fire, for example, and even like the remix Ladies in the House. I'll let these play, but they're not particularly favorites for me. But I can't bear myself to skip any songs on this album, so I never really do. Some of my favorite songs on this album, Everything's Gonna Be Alright is like my favorite Aaliyah song of all time. Has such a great groove to it. I love the vocals in there. I love how I feel listening to it. It just brings me so much joy. So that's definitely got to be a top Aaliyah song all time for me. And then I also really love One in a Million, of course. This is an R&B classic. I love the video for there as well. It's aged incredibly. The production, the vocals, the lyrics, yeah, they did what had to be done, plain and simple. And then last up, I'm gonna say Choosy Lover, Old School, New School. Songs that I feel like are underrated on this album, A Girl Like You featuring Tretch, I believe is how you pronounce it. I really like that one. It's a fun listen. And then Heartbroken, I would say is underrated. Also, Never Given Up featuring Tavarius Polk. I believe someone told me he was like 14 whenever he recorded this. Wow, what great vocal performance on the song. So definitely some great underrated gems in here. I just think as a package, this is such a great album to listen to. We have One in a Million, 4-page letter. Oh, that one is so catchy. I love the video for that as well. We have the Slick Rick collaboration. That was a great moment. So we have the hits, we have the great deep cuts. I think that it's a pretty cohesive sophomore effort. So there's a lot to like about it. Now to number 4, which is going to be Melodrama by Lorde. So whenever I got into Lorde, it was like my sophomore year of high school, I believe. I got into her debut and I really liked it. And then I was so excited for whenever Melodrama came out. I listened to it the first time, I didn't really get it. I was like, let me listen again. Ever since then, I've loved this album. I think that this is an amazing pop album. And it feels kind of a drastic change for Lorde in a sense, because like she had stuff that had pop sensibilities and stuff like Teen, for example, and Royals, but a lot of the first album was more alternative and everything. And I really do like that album. That's one of my favorite debut albums of all time for sure. Amazing writing. And then this album, she definitely was more pop focused, but I feel like she didn't lose her edge in terms of songwriting. I liked her vocal performances on here a lot. Shout out to Jack Antonoff for the production. And it kind of felt like a creative risk in a way, but it just fit really good with the time. This is like a great summer album to listen to. So in terms of songs I feel like were underrated on this album, Sober to Melodrama, this song is excellent. Like I was just listening to it again for this video. Whenever the beat drops and just how dark and moody the production is, I absolutely love it. And then Rider in the Dark is also underrated. Liability Reprise is supremely underrated. And whenever I go into my favorite songs of this album, Liability Reprise is certainly there. And it's just something that I've always loved. I also love the regular Liability as well. Supercut, it just has such a joy about it. It's so kind of reflective in a way, and that's what I really enjoy in terms of the songwriting piece on that song. I also have to give some love to Homemade Dynamite as well, and then Sober I think are like my absolute favorites on this album. But for me, this album doesn't have any skips on it. I also love the album cover as well. I just think that it looks super cool on there. And she even on the deluxe of this album, she has a remix of Homemade Dynamite. It's like Post Malone, SZA, and Khalid. I forget that her and SZA have a song together all the time. I really liked that collaboration as well. So Lorde definitely got to be one of my favorite newer artists. I think that she's just super interesting overall as a person, as an artist. I think she brings a lot to the table. Now it's number 3, which is going to be Future Sex Love Sounds by Justin Timberlake. As a person, don't care for him. He got to be held accountable. Let's just get that out of the way. In terms of his music, he makes a lot of great music for the most part, and this album is a great example of that. He kind of said that he wanted to make more dance music, and so him and Timbaland definitely succeeded in that. I feel like this is a huge growth from the debut album. The debut album was cute, had great songs like Taken From Here, Nothing Else, for example, but I just think that this album is way better, and this is a great example of like electro-pop, electro-R&B. So I just think that this was a very ambitious effort for the time, and I can really appreciate what they did with this album overall. Definitely one of my favorite albums of that year for sure. There's just a lot to like about it from a soundscape kind of perspective. Incredible vocal performances on here, really catchy writing on here. There's a lot of different vibes on this album and a lot of things to like. And so you're gonna get it all on this album. You have hits like Sexy Back, which is something that I still like listening to. My Love is a great song, though I just skip when T.I. comes on there because I don't really care for his verse, to be honest with you. And then some underrated songs on this album. Chop Me Up has grown on me a lot. I used to not care for this song at all, but whenever I came back to this album a few more times, it really grew on me. I was like, okay, like this song really is giving, so I feel like that one deserves a little bit more appreciation. A great song on the deluxe version is Until the End of Time with Beyonce. That's the only version I listen to because Beyonce makes everything better, obviously, and just the way that their vocals pair up, and it's already a great song, and she just takes it to the next level, and what a beautiful piece to listen to, quite honestly. In terms of my skips on this album, I don't like Damn Girl. It just feels like a really weak song, doesn't fit in the album well, definitely could have been a reject in my opinion. I don't know why it was there. And then I also don't like Another Song All Over Again. Just as a closer, it feels kind of weak. That's always gonna be a skip. Losing in My Way, I feel like it's way more compelling, and that's gonna be the song that I end the album out with. And you know, some of these songs run a little bit long. That's what the skip button is for, no shade. And I kind of made my own playlist of the album so it flows a little bit better. In terms of my favorite songs on this album, Love Stone, I Think She Knows, Interlude, incredible. Wow, what a journey that you go on to listening to the song. Quite honestly, what a great piece. And then I'm gonna say Summer Love. I just love the production on there. I love his vocal delivery, his cadence. I think it is super unique as well. I wish we would have got a music video for this. It's also one of my favorite Justin Timberlake songs of all time, and I'm shocked when I find out people don't like this song. I'm like, it's one of the best songs in the album. And then for number 3, I decided to go What Goes Around Comes Around. I love the production in here, like the guitar, his vocal performance, the sentiment of the song, What Goes Around Comes Around. And ironically enough, you know, that kind of happened for his career. I really love the album cover for this one as well, so definitely a great piece, I will say. Now on to number 2, which is going to be Emotions by Mariah Carey. If you've seen it up in my videos, you know that Mariah Carey is my favorite artist of all time, and I think that this is a really great sophomore effort for her. She put it out really closely after the debut album. She was already working on writing the songs for this album after her debut was out, and only a few singles had been put out, so she was already getting to work. And if you're really into soul, gospel, R&B, jazz, and this is a really great album for you to listen to. And whenever I want to point to songs that really showcase Mariah's vocal ability and just everything that she's doing, I definitely point to this album, and also her debut album as well, just because it is so impressive to hear all the riffs and the runs and the whistle notes and even the lower notes that she's doing, and she's just so supremely talented as a vocalist, and she really put her all into this album, no pun intended. And she wrote all the lyrics on this album by herself. A lot of people don't know that Mariah Carey is a songwriter, and so that is something that I always try to harp on in my video. She wrote 18 out of her 19 #1 hits, including All I Want for Christmas Is You, and so that's definitely something we have to talk about more. Mariah was able to be fully involved in the production. She co-produced the entire thing. I think that this album is just incredible to listen to from a vocal standpoint, of course, obviously. The songwriting's no slouch either, and I think the production on here is very fitting, and we have some nice moments. It sounds like the 90s, yes, but in the best way. Sometimes things are time capsule in a good way, and that's what this album is, at least for me. Some underrated songs of this album, Till the End of Time, certainly. What a gorgeous piece to listen to. I like the way that it builds up, and the vocals on here, bone chilling. Definitely had to listen to the song. I would also say To Be Around You is quite underrated as well. The Wind is so underrated. Nobody ever talks talks about the wind when it comes time to talk about Mariah's discography. And even some of my friends are like, oh, the wind is boring and blah, blah, blah. Is it a depressing song to listen to? 1000%. Is it a great song? Yes. It feels kind of like a fine wine listening to it. Just a beautiful vocal piece, honestly. And that song deserves so much more than most people give it. In terms of my skips on this album, I would say Make It Happen. Before You Jump Me, it's because I like the live version more. All the Lambs are gonna understand me because the 1995 version at Madison Square Garden, she just took it to the next level. I listened to the studio version again and I was like, oh, this is great. When you listen to that and the live version, I just feel like she kicked it into high gear and I like it so much more. Even with the little I See You Up There part, it's definitely something that Lambs know, Lambs love, and for a reason. So I always tend to go to the live version and Make It Happen, but the album version honestly really is great. And then sometimes, and you don't remember, sometimes I listen to it, but you know, there's songs like If It's Over or Can't Let Go that kind of had a similar sentiment, I think are better songs. But you know, there's times where I listen to this album all the way through. So at most, a lot of the times I'll just, you know, replace the album version Make It Happen with the live version. Really short, only 10 songs. My favorite songs on this album, definitely have to give it to Emotions, the song. And this song alone solidified Mariah Carey as one of the best vocalists of all time. She has a 5-octave vocal range. She's showing that on the song. She's belting the entire time, all the whistle notes. Like, this song is so incredibly hard to sing. And what an incredible feat just in terms of the vocal performance alone, right? And then I also really love Can't Let Go. This song should have been #1 if not for Tommy Mottola. He wrong for that. He wrong for pulling that off the shelf. But just what a quintessential Mariah Carey ballad that I love. I'm also kind of going to say Make It Happen because I really do like the song as well. So that's kind of what I'm going to say is my top 3. If I had to substitute it, to Be Around You or Till the End of Time. So it definitely is, you know, a bit of a change from the debut album. But I think that there's just so many highlights on here. And if you want to see Mariah Carey at her peak, you definitely have to check out this album as well as her entire 90s discography. I think that there's just so many gems in there to listen to and a lot of songs that people don't talk about. But definitely have to give Emotions some love because it is a great sophomore album. And now on to my #1 pick for this video, Bday by Beyonce. I had to say it. On Twitter, on social media, a lot of people are saying, oh, Bday isn't one of Beyonce's best albums. Y'all do too much on it. It's elementary this and blah, blah, blah. What happened to fun? What happened to fun? It kind of feels similar to me to the way that people talk about Rainbow by Mariah Carey, which is one of my favorite Mariah Carey albums. I'm sorry. This album, it just, like, you can play it in the background while you're doing something so mediocre, so boring. You're still getting your life. I literally saw this tweet and someone tweeted a song from Bday and someone said, Bday at 9 a.m. I know you cleaning down. Exactly. The pure energy that she put into this album, I have to have it there. It is so much fun to listen to, honestly. This album had hit after hit after hit. She recorded this album in like 2 to 3 weeks, and sometimes people use that as a drag and oh, it sounds like that and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you just gotta live life. Sometimes you just gotta live life. And I'm sorry, a world without Bday is not a world worth living in. That might sound dramatic, but Bday is just too good of an album. I'm not here for Bday slander. I'm not. It's always been one of my favorite Beyonce albums. It always will be because it was something serious in that studio. And after Beyonce did Dreamgirls, she gave us one of the best albums of that year and one of her best albums. I'm sorry, she did what had to be done. And the material speaks for itself. Deja Vu, Upgrade You, Kitty Cat, Freakum Dress, Ring the Alarm, and so on. I mean, look at the material that we're getting on this album. This album is loud as hell, but in the best way. The singing was on 10, the production's on 10, and I'm absolutely loving it. I really am. It's just chaotic kind of, but in the best way, and either you get it or you don't. I'm one of the people that gets it, and I will defend this album tooth and nail every time it gets brought up because I'm sorry she ate. And so my skips on this album, Get Me Bodied. I've never liked Get Me Bodied. It's cute when she performs a little bit of it live, but I don't really need it in the set list to begin with, and I just don't really care for Get Me Bodied, especially that extended version. People always drag me for that, but I never really care for that song. And then Resentment. It's like, I think Resentment is a really good song, but it just doesn't really fit the album. Like, yes, we have Irreplaceable, which is a mid-tempo, but I feel like it really fits in the album a lot more than Resentment. Resentment kind of just feels like an afterthought to me in a sense. But you know, that is a skip. We want to talk about songs that are underrated on this album. Check on it. Oh, that song is so good. I would never have guessed that song was #1 though. If anything, that was definitely giving me a top 10 moment. But I really like the video for that as well. And I don't know why it's not in the deluxe version of the album. I really don't. The deluxe tracks on there were great too. Beautiful Liar with Shakira. We definitely have to give some love to that as well. So when it had that moment, even songs that she didn't release like Creole. Creole is such an excellent song. I would love for her to release that at some point and put that on streaming. I don't know if she ever will, but I love that song. In terms of my favorite songs on this album, Kitty Cat is one of my favorite Beyonce songs all time. Definitely top 5 Beyonce songs. It really kind of sums up Beyonce as an artist. It's a song about empowerment, so I kind of like it in that. It's a great mid-tempo song. Shout out to Neptunes for an excellent production here. That bridge, one of my favorite Beyonce bridges of all time. I loved her vocals on here as well. Doesn't really get much better than Kitty Cat. Always going to stand that song down. Freakum Dress, so much fun. Especially that intro. Stop, I ain't ready yet. Okay, it's too good. Green Light is just dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit. Incredible. incredible. In terms of underrated songs on this album, I definitely say Sugar Mama is an underrated song, and also have to give it to Check on It as well. I think there's a lot to like about the bday album. I really do. I love the era. I love her hair on the album cover. I love the regular album cover as well. One of my favorite album covers from Beyonce, just the aesthetics and all that stuff. The deluxe album was deluxing, you know, and I really appreciate that. A lot of times now people release deluxe albums as an afterthought. But one thing about Beyonce, when she did a deluxe, she gave a whole experience. She's rearranging the track listing. She added in even some of the Spanish songs and stuff like that. Like, Beyonce did her big one with that deluxe as well. Though I like the sequencing of the standard a lot more. So I have a playlist. I have the standard songs, and then I have the deluxe songs that I really like, and I like how it flows a little bit better. But bday, it's too good of an album. It's too good of an album. I'm sorry. Has to be best sophomore album of all time. I really thought about it, and I was like, there's no way I made this video and bday's not at #1. So that's what I ultimately picked. Some quick honorable mentions that I wanted to share. Harrystyles, Fine Line, great sophomore album. Some of my favorite songs on there. I really love Cherry. I feel like that song is overhated for no reason. Canyon Moon is my favorite Harrystyles song as well. Golden was certainly a treat to listen to. She, with that incredible guitar solo, we have to talk about it. Another honorable mention I want to talk about is Oliviarodrigo, Guts. Great album, listen to it a lot. I feel like it deserved a little bit more in terms of promotion from the label and from the people at large, but I liked it more than her debut. I feel like she improved on it. We got more up tempos. Some of my favorite songs on that, Vampire, what a great lead single. I still really love it. That I Did Right was a great moment. I love Getting Back as well. Some other great songs, Bout of a Homeschooled Girl, Making the Bed. I don't really care for Logical that much on the album, and like maybe a song or two. And then the deluxe is out, you know, Obsessed, The Hit That You Are, let's talk about that. But of course I have to give Oliviarodrigo honorable mention because what she did with that album, we have to talk about Oliviarodrigo's career right now. It's going so well. I made a video recently on my second channel on why she's so successful, so definitely tap into that. And like I said, all the videos that I've made on these artists will be linked down below in the description and everything that I referenced if you would like to check out more on them and, you know, see track by track reviews and all that stuff. But that is going to be my favorite sophomore albums of all time video. I am so glad I finally did this video. I've had this video written down for the longest. I've come back to it multiple times and like, I'm not ready to do this video yet. I need to finish it. I'm glad I'm doing it now because I know I like this video a lot more doing it now than I would have like a year ago, 2 years ago, because that's just how I am. I feel like I get better every single year. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. What is your favorite pick from this list? Do you agree with my picks? Is there any great sophomore albums that you feel like I left out? Maybe some I just don't like as much as other people, or maybe some I just haven't heard. So I'd like to hear your picks down below and just your thoughts on this conversation. The sophomore album, it's so important. It's so important. If you wanted to see a similar video to this, I did a video on my favorite debut albums of all time, so you can check out that list. And then I also did my favorite debut singles of all time as well. But that is going to be it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, give it a like down below. It helps me out a lot on YouTube algorithm. I very much appreciate it. You can subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this, and I also do album reviews, album reactions, stuff like that every single week. So if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Give it the bell. You'll get a notification to your phone when I post, so you're not missing brand new videos come out. First link down below in the description is going to be my second channel, and so I a lot of times upload TikToks that I do onto there, but not always. Sometimes I did videos on like sports or Real Housewives of Atlanta or concert reviews or just whatever I want to post on there. I post on there. There's no set upload schedule or structure on that channel. I just do whatever I want. Also posting some of my favorite Mariah Carey interviews as well. And I'm trying to post a lot of obscure stuff that people may not have seen because it's a lot of fun to share. And thank you guys so much for the success on that channel. 600 subscribers is absolutely crazy. And then I'm also going to have my social media as well. I got 2 Twitter accounts. You can follow me down below. Instagram as well. TikTok. I have 2 different accounts. You can check those out to see more from me. I'm also going to have my earbuds account. So if you want to see what I'm listening to in real time, there's that. And lastly, I'm going to have links to educate you guys on important situations. Free Palestine. This is something that we must educate ourselves on, and if you want to learn more about the cause or donate, I have links for that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.